Hey everyone, Nick here with Whole Latte Love. Thanks for joining me. If you know the drill with our live streams, today we'll be taking a look at the Jura Z10 Super Automatic Espresso Machine. We'll be covering initial setup and then of course how to get started with milk drinks and easy espresso, coffees, some of the cool programming that this machine has. Just want to say hi to my guys behind the camera. We got Mark and Brian getting a well-deserved break from some on-screen time, except of course to field your questions. So if there's anything you want more clarification on throughout the course of this stream, definitely toss them a question and I'll do my best to answer it for you. But the Z10 is an amazing espresso machine, so let's get right into it. We'll start with unboxing, and first we'll unlock these little plastic twists that we've got on the side here. And then Jura uses some nice frustration-free packaging, so I'll kind of demo how easy it is to get this out. But basically, once you have the machine opened up, we will have our Jura welcome kit on the top. So this little bag I'll cover. Oh, there we go. What's in here? There's some cleaning supplies, some tubes that we'll use to connect to our milk frother, all that. So we'll set that aside. We also have our adapter for our water filter. So this makes the filter a little bit taller, basically, so it fits properly inside the reservoir. Of course, our power cord's up here. We'll get our styrofoam out of the way. And then basically, we can just lift the Z10 right out of here. So removing the machine is not very difficult at all. And then we'll just get this right out of the way. So this particular model of the Z10 is called aluminum white. That refers to the side panels, which are white plastic, and then the front of the machine, which is a very nice convex concave aluminum. So you can always tell it's real metal when it's cool to the touch, which to me on super autos is kind of rare. There aren't too many machines that actually come with metal as a component. Gaja has a good assortment of them. Jura has the Z10, and so this particular model, being aluminum white, is the only Z10 actually that's got metal in the construction. So going solo today, so I just need to get rid of all my own trash. And we'll plug in right over here. So the Z10 has a touch screen on it. It's full color, which is something that is going to become more and more common with Jura. And our power switch is located right up here in the top and the back left. So now that we've got the machine plugged in, we'll simply wake it up and turn it on. Now on the side here, this is where we'll connect our milk tube. This is why I have my cool control right here. And let's get tight on the screen so we can cover what are some of our initial setup steps, try to get that as centered as possible. But first, we're going to choose what language we're in. So English is the default here in North America. But we do have other options, and basically you would use the touchscreen to scroll through those. In the top right, we'll press Save, and we've got a nice confirmation and a green check mark. So next up is to test our water hardness. So that's going to be something you'll do on pretty much every super automatic machine. Now we'll go right back to our goodie bag here, and this is where we're going to find our water hardness test strip. So inside, just to go over, we do have one Clear Smart Plus water filter. That's going to keep the machine from having to be descaled. Some of our three-phase cleaning tablets, use those to clean the brew group. We have some wipes for the machine. These are nice. They don't leave streaks, and they're good for just cleaning off coffee and spatter like that. Your user manual, which you don't need because you've got me here with you today, of course. And then we've got some additional accessories that came in our cleaning caddy. So this is a really cool kind of closed circuit cleaning system that you can put right underneath our spouts here. This is where our milk cleaning is happening. And then in our little bag that we've got right here, if you want to go right back to that last shot that we had there, you can see the remaining accessories. So in here we have our tube. That's how we're going to connect the milk system to our cool control. We have a spout to attach for dispensing hot water. And then we have our water hardness strip. So the strip is a really easy process. And so basically, all you want to do is take whatever water it is that you're going to use to fill the machine's reservoir and dip the strip in there. So in this case, we're going to use some of our nice filtered water. This is one of the last BWT penguins you'll probably ever see. We've got the new Aqualizer pitcher. I think it sounds a lot cooler. It looks a lot cooler too. So definitely check those out. We've been launching some new products. We also have a new filter cartridge that has zinc in addition to magnesium, so it has all the benefits of the original plus the inclusion of zinc. Now, we've got 5 squares here on our strip. We're going to dip that in, take that out, and we're going to just give it a sec, because what's going to happen is as these squares change color, they're going to correspond to the hardness on our actual machine here, and that's how we're going to program the results here. So it is going to take a little bit, but we're starting to see that first square is starting to change to more of the orange-red color that we're seeing, but you would be able to adjust through. And really, it's hard to know exactly whereabouts we are, but with only one square changing, that means we're somewhere between about 6 and 10 degrees hardness. If it's not fully red, I'm going to say we're probably around 7 there. That's programming the water hardness. So what that's going to do is it's basically going to tell the machine how frequently we need to descale, and it also, if you're using the water filter, tells the machine how frequently you'd want to change the water filter as well. Now, if you've noticed, there's no getting out of the filter. The machine is asking me right now to install it, and so what's going to happen is there's an RFID chip inside the ClearSmart filter system, and that tells the machine that you've got the filter installed. So what will happen is, if you change the filter regularly, you'll never be prompted to descale your espresso machine. But if you don't change your water filter, the machine will switch back into descaling mode, at which point you'll be prompted to descale after a certain number of drinks have been brewed. So we'll take this out, though, and we'll go back to our cartridge extender here. And so more or less, this is just used so that you don't have to reach your whole hand into the pitch or into the reservoir there. So give me just a sec. This one I'm not as familiar with. So basically, though, we'll get the filter in there like this, and then push down, and then now we can install it. And it just inserts, there's a water socket on the base of the reservoir right here that you can see. And so you just want to line up that filter with that, and then get that right in there. So let me just get that down. It's got a nice little cross-hatched hexagonal pattern, and we're installed. So now we're going to put that back in. The machine can recognize that it's in there, and that's really kind of the benefit of that RFID as well. So it's asking to rinse, so I do want to put water into the tank now. It is kind of funny. They're actually asking me to fill the tank after they're asking to rinse, so that's a little out of order. We'll press the rotary switch, though, and if you ever see the term rotary switch being referred to, that's just this switch that we've got right here on the top of the machine. That's used for navigating menus, and it's also used basically to go between different drinks as well. So rinsing is going to happen automatically, and all that's going to really do is basically prime the filter cartridge and the machine simultaneously. And so again, with the RFID chip in there, you don't have to go in and activate the filter. The machine will know that it's installed simply from its proximity. And I can move this, but our water dispenser is just going to dispense any water that we have. And then what's really nice about these modern Juras and modern super autos in general is that it's really easy to keep track of everything that's going on. So we've got a progress bar here right on the screen covering the process of rinsing. Once that's done, we'll be able to start having some fun with our machine. So Mark, do we have any questions so far? Or obviously this is probably not as exciting, but you know, one of the things about Jura's machines in general is they do want you to be a little bit more fastidious when it comes to cleaning them. So maintenance prompts like these are a little bit harder to ignore, especially on a machine like this one. There's a feature called the Jura Cockpit that you can use to basically check the maintenance status of all the different components of the machine, ranging from the brew group to your descaling necessity to the life of your filter, if you need to clean the milk system. All that's covered. So on the one hand, it's really easy to keep up with all your cleaning, but on the other hand, Jura, if you don't descale this machine, eventually you'll be locked out of performing any of the other functions. Like I say, you're in coffee jail, basically, and then you can't use it until you've actually gone in and cleaned it. So our filter has been rinsed, and the system is now filling, so we've got water going out. And so the rinsing is really just to make sure that the filter is activated. So basically, if you put a dry filter in, which is what I just did, the machine accounts for that, and it rinses it to make sure that water can flow through it properly. if water wasn't flowing through the filter properly, we wouldn't see any water coming out of the machine at all, and that would be no good. So I'm going to anticipate that our next step is actually to get some beans. So I'm going to get some fresh crema wave here. And we'll get started. So one of the neat things about the Z10 in particular is that it uses a digital grinder adjustment as opposed to a physical one. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But we're also going to empty the drip tray. And one thing I want to point out on the Z10's drip tray as well, let me just raise that up, is if you look here, these are electrical contacts. So basically, if there's too much water in the tray, the machine actually knows because there's a current and it can detect the presence of water in the tray. So when it's prompting you to empty it, it's actually because there's too much water. Let me just dump this out. One cool design feature too is there is a little point that the tray comes to that just helps guide the water out so it's a little bit easier to pour out. We fitted that back in, had our nice little beep there. They are asking if we want to connect our cool control, which I'd say we probably do, so we'll go ahead and do that right now. So the cool control is a refrigerated countertop milk unit. Oh, I may have unplugged it. Give me just a moment. There we go. Okay. And we'll connect. So, okay. I think this may be seeing if we can actually connect using the Wi-Fi. So let's just give that a second to think. Basically, with the Wi-Fi connection, which is newer on some of the Juras, the idea is that the units can communicate with one another and basically see how much milk is left based on the weight-based sensor. All that really kind of does is it tells the machine, hey, there's not enough milk in here to make a milk drink. So in this case, let's just see here. Have you switched the cool control on and off? Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to skip that for now because I would say there's probably more interesting things that we can do with this machine. But for troubleshooting on these, Jura's usually pretty good about it. But Wi-Fi is always one of those things where it's not necessarily even the machine. In some cases, it's your whole house Wi-Fi, making sure everything has access to it. So that's kind of a IT situation, not so much a coffee situation, which is what I'm a little more inclined towards, let's say. Now we're just rinsing again. You'll notice that these machines do tend to rinse themselves a lot. And so that's another thing too, is if you're planning on using this for entertaining, or you're opening it and you've got guests coming, let's say on the morning of the holidays, open it and get started right away, because there are quite a few steps that you need to go through just in order to get the machine working for the first time. But once we're ready, everything's going to be worth it. So machine's done rinsing, and we're going to go ahead and fill up our hopper with some beans here. So again, we'll use some fresh crema wave. And the Z10 is interesting because we have a couple of different menus right off the bat. So we also notice there are no names on any of these drinks, but basically we've got 5 here. We've got another 5 on the next page. And then if we start turning the rotary switch, that's when we can get into our full menu of drinks as well. So you might be wondering, hey, where are all those drinks? Well, they're stored in the machine's programming. But for the purposes of this video too, I want to make sure that we actually go over how do you actually get those drink names back, right? Because let's say you've never used a Jura before, you don't know what anything is. One of the best ways to really get used to things is to brew them in their default configuration by Jura first before you start making some of your changes. So I'm just going to press the center button on that rotary switch, and then I'm going to tap on the gear icon to get us to our programming menu here. And so you can see there's an option for product name. We'll tap that, and we're going to switch that to on. And now all of the drinks are going to have their names. But to go over a couple other things in here just real quickly, smart mode, that's an AI feature. It's basically just an algorithm. That means that the machine is going to show you the drinks that you brew the most on your first screen. So if there's something that becomes more popular and you drink it more and more, it'll eventually make its way to the front. And so we've got smart mode on by default. We'll go back though. We can also choose the number of screens that we want. That's just going to change the number of products that we can program to have on our screens as well. and then something else. Do you want to add a start screen? We're going to say no for right now. Number of products lets us change the number on the screens as well. So we can either have it set to automatic, 2 or 5. We're going to leave it on 5, which is where it is right now. And then we have a couple things like Wi-Fi, when to switch it off, etc. To go to our next page, we're just going to tap. Now we're on 2 of 2, so you can reprogram water hardness. You can get other information. You can look at maintenance, that sort of thing. Pretty relevant, but maybe a little bit boring. So let's just make a coffee, right? It's the center option here. It's just called coffee. If we tap the screen and we tap a drink, that's going to make it. So let's do that right now. So we can see Jura allows us to make changes to the drinks as they're being brewed. So we saw right there the coffee is being set at kind of a medium strength, and we're only going to do 4 ounces. So lots of people like to know, can I make a full cup of coffee? Well, we can go all the way up to 8 ounces with this particular beverage, which is called the coffee. And so the one thing I was saying is, which is part of the reason why you want to try all the different drinks that the machine can make, each drink is going to have a different set of parameters that you can adjust. So on a coffee, for example, the highest volume we can get to is 8. And that's just for a single cup. You can already see, though, a great head of crema there. It's always nice to see that cascading foam as well while it's being made. Like, the visual appeal just of your drinks, I think, really gets kicked up a notch when you're using a super automatic machine. And so really, after all that, we made our coffee in probably under a minute just by tapping a button. I'll give that a quick sip. That's very nice. We have a question? Oh, perfect.
So J-Man might have missed the beginning of it, but he wants to he asked if you could go over what materials are used and how's the build quality on this
What
machine?
materials are used in the build quality?
Yeah.
So J-Man, I really appreciate that question. On the front of the machine, this is actually aluminum. So you have it going down. I remember when we first saw the presentation for this, Jura was very proud because this is a convex concave design. So that means that we have it curving inwards and also upwards like this. So this front panel is all aluminum, and that goes down here where our drip tray is. The sides and top of the machine are actually made out of plastic and chromed plastic. So like our vents up here and the surrounding of our bean hopper, that's the chromed plastic. All the rest is white plastic. So we have a nice ribbed BPA-free water reservoir as well, and then the chromed top on that too. But the primary difference between the aluminum white Z10 and say like the diamond white is that we have an aluminum panel here. Fill water tank, see? We're already making too much coffee. Now, just to show this as well, you can lift it out of the reservoir with a nice little handle. The whole ribbing, the idea behind that is to hide water spots as well. That was a decision by the CEO of Jura. And so, in case you're wondering, some of Jura's espresso machines are made in Portugal, and then some of them are made in Switzerland. The Z10 is, of course, made in Switzerland. So we'll put that right back on. And we're ready to keep going. So I just made a coffee, but let's say we want to save some settings. Let's say we wanted to make some tweaks to that coffee. We can go right back to our screen for a moment. I'll show you how you would do that because it's actually incredibly simple. So with the Jura Z10, you touch a drink, that's going to make it. But if you push and hold on a drink, that opens up an entire universe of programming. So product settings is going to be our main place to go. And now I mentioned digital grind adjustment. So what does that mean? Well, what that actually means is this machine adjusts the grinder digitally. So let's say you're used to another super automatic. You're kind of pushing and twisting to change that grinder, like a medicine bottle or something like that. The Z10 says, nah, I'll take care of it for you. So you can see here for our coffee, we can actually set the consistency of our grind. And what that means is that every time that we make this drink, the burrs are going to adjust to that consistency. So our coffees can have a more coarse grind for a more light extraction, and our espressos can have a much more fine grind for a more full-bodied extraction, which is really super cool. So I'm going to leave this where it is, though. I think that coarse setting is good. You can go super coarse. That would be for the cold brew, and we're going to cover that. So stay tuned. But you go to our coffee strength. I like my coffee a little bolder. You have ultimately the ability to make 10 different settings on there, so we can go all the way up to 16 grams at our maximum. We can go all the way down to 5 grams at our minimum. So we were about halfway through, so that's probably what, around like 11 grams. Let's say I want to go up to maybe 7 or 8. Hit save. And then I liked that volume, so we're going to go back to our volume, and we're just going to say, okay, we're going to make sure that we want 8 ounces every time. Temperature is set to high, and we'll hit save. And so now our coffee is going to be 8 ounces every time. It's going to be stronger. Maybe I'll change the name too. We'll call this one the Nick, because it's going to be for me, of course. Hopefully Mark will let me take this machine home with me after this live stream. But we'll save that there. And then we can get into some of Jura's other really cool features. So let's say we really like this. Well, what if we want to do some of that cold brew that I just talked about? Well, you can either program the drink to be a cold drink. So like if we look at our cafe latte up here, you can see the little snowflake icon. That means that it's been preset to be cold brew. But we also have a nice little override feature that I'm going to show you how to use as well. And so Brian was kind enough beforehand to prep me with some ice cubes. This is one of our fellow Carter Everywhere mugs. I think they're perfect, though, for ice cubes as well. And we'll talk about what Jura calls the CEP, or the cold extraction process, because this is not iced coffee. This is actually going to be a cold-style extraction. And what that means is we're not going to be using just hot coffee that we're brewing over ice. You're going to see probably an initial infusion of a little bit of hot coffee, followed by a much slower pulsed extraction. That's where that cold extraction process comes in. That's where the ability to change the grind is super important, because the cold extraction uses a much more coarse grind so that the coffee can be extracted even with a lower temperature of water. And the Z10 has what Jura refers to as dual fluid systems. So we have a hot water fluid system and a cold water, or let's say room temperature water fluid system as well. So you do want to use ice to chill the drink, but we're not extracting it the same way that we would extract a hot coffee. So let's get back to our screen again for a moment, because what I'm going to show you is at the top here we have a bar, and you can tap that to temporarily override a drink with a special setting. So we have iced, or cold extraction. We have extra shot, which is for our milk drinks. You have a ×2, which will grind and brew 2, or you can use pre-ground. I'm going to say ice in this case. So now you can see we've got an iced Nick. Good thing I'm wearing a sweater. And basically, we're going to make our iced coffee. So let's get tight on this too, because you can actually see in the extraction how this looks different from a regular brew. So we are going to see the initial burst, but then you can hear that pulsing, and you can see just the slow drip of the coffee instead. That's the cold extraction process. So if you see that happening when you're making a cold drink and you're thinking, oh gosh, like what's wrong with the machine? That's actually what it's supposed to look like. And you're going to see minimal ice melt, and it's going to be a very different sort of beverage than your traditional iced coffee. And if you're curious, I'd recommend make an iced coffee. Just put some ice in and just brew a coffee, and then put some ice in and make a cold extracted coffee. It's a world of difference between the two of them, and I definitely recommend that you try it. So we'll finish that up, and then I'll show you how to make a milk drink on the Z10, because it's really pretty cool. Now, before I continue, do we have any questions from the audience?
Sure. BJ was wondering, obviously, and I was thinking the same thing, with as complicated as, well, not complicated, but as detailed as that menu is, are there any like software updates, or does this machine get software or firmware updates?
No, it doesn't. As far as I know, it is actually just a version that you would get, a particular version. There is Jura's Joe app that you can get. So this machine is app compatible out of the box. It's going to come with the Wi-Fi connector, and then basically you just download the Joe app and then you use it with the machine. And so that would have any of the updates as far as the operating is concerned sent straight to your phone. So we are finishing up now, and we have our cold extraction. And this cup is cold. It is not hot at all. And if we want to stop too, we can always just press cancel as well. But we still have that nice cascading foam, and you can see, yeah, that's very good. A nice cold extracted coffee. So let's go into the actual milk beverages though, because Jura uses more or less the same kind of system on all their all their machines. The Z10 actually integrates everything though together, which is really cool. So our milk system is built right into the spout, which is terrific because if you want a really tall coffee drink too, let's say you've got a to-go cup, you just have a lot of extra clearance. There's about 6 inches of space. So we benefit from the fact that we would want, to fit more volume because we're using a milk beverage. So let's see though, what are our options here? I think we'll make a flat white. Mark is pretty fond of those. So I'm basically just going to tap our flat white button. And this tube that comes with the machine, you can do pretty much anything you want with it. You can drop it into just a carton of milk, you can fill up a cup, or you can use one of Jura's own either refrigerated solutions, or they also have, for example, a glass milk container. So we're doing our flat white though, starting with our coffee. One thing that's really nice about the Z10 as well is it has 2 thermal blocks. So what that means is there's much less wait time between brewing and then frothing as well. And so on the Z10, you can produce hot milk, milk foam, and you can change the temperatures of the milk and the milk foam within 10 settings. So there's a ton of variation as far as how you actually prep the milk for your milk drinks. So let's get back on the action though. And we've just got that tube just drawing the milk up out of our cool control. Cool control is nice. It's a refrigerated countertop milk solution. So I can open the lid here. You can see that's where our milk's coming from. And we've just switched from 14 seconds of milk to 4 seconds of milk foam. It's going to be the perfect size. It might be that I'm using one of those Jura cups, so it could be already designed for this sort of thing. But right there, you have what Jura calls as well, automatic milk switchover. And so that's a bit of a mouthful, but what that means is you can transition from producing hot milk to milk foam instantly. So let's say you had a machine like the Jura S8 or the J8, you're going to have to manually change that dial in order to adjust what type of milk you're producing. On the Z10, it's automatically changing, and if you're close enough to the machine, you can actually hear it. So I'll give that a little taste as well. And then, Brian, do we have any more questions, or is there anything that you want to see?
We do have another question. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but Riddy Rock asked, I'm just going to read it word for word. People seem to think the coffee from Jura Super Autos are superior to coffee from other Super Autos. Do you also find that to be true?
That's a good question. And I think it really does come down to your palate and how it extracts. One thing that I can say that's undebatable is that on the Jura espresso machines in particular, they do have, in almost every machine, a conical steel grinder, which is going to affect the flavor and the extraction, first of all. But they also have 16-gram brew units. So in all of their full-size machines, like the Z10, you can fit up to 16 grams. If you're using a compact machine like the NF4 or the NA8, you're going to max out at 10 grams. So if you're used to brewing on super autos and let's say you went from something that maxed at 10 grams or 11 grams, and now all of a sudden you can fit a whole extra 5 grams of coffee in there, the shot is going to be more intense and more bold. And if that's what people prefer, I would say, yes, you should maybe consider a Jura, because in one grind and brew cycle, you are able to get that 16-gram extraction. And so to me, I really enjoy that as well. It's especially good if you like tall cups of coffee without having them be as diluted. The Jura does offer a lot in terms of brewing features, but then let's say you look at something like the Gage Academia, for example, that's introducing a whole other set of variables, such as the ability to control flow and programmable pre-infusion. So I do think, unfortunately for me, I have the benefit of having tasted coffee from both, but I can assure you they both taste really good, but there are definitely some reasons why a Jura might produce a coffee that someone likes better, say, than espresso that they've had on other super autos. Yeah, if I've got time. I'm happy to answer more questions.
I think I already know the answer to this one, but I want to pose it to you. Subdude wants to know, is the sweet foam attachment from the J8 compatible with the Z10?
That I knew that sweet foam was going to be trouble when Jura brought it up, because it's actually really cool. But the answer is no. So this is an entirely different self-contained frothing assembly. So there's nowhere where you can put it. So there's 2 little tabs on the back. You can take it off here. But basically, on the front, you can see this is where all the action's happening. And then I think it's right in here. There's a little pin that kind of pushes, that changes how the milk's being pinched, which changes the texture on there as well. There's no room for you to do that. But what I will tell you is, and this is something that I have experience with, I used a Jura machine to cater a wedding, actually, and what I wound up doing was I had a separate small carafe that I mixed syrup in with milk and just frothed that on its own. So, you kind of have to go all in and make all the milk sweetened milk, but if you're going to do a lot of seasonal lattes or something like that, I think you could get away with that, and then just, maybe have a second tube or something. Generally, if you buy one of Jura's own milk containers, it's going to come with an extra tube. So I think that would be probably the solution, and then you can still have all the other benefits of the Z10 as well. So we have any other ones, Brian?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it now. FLX Enthusiast wants to know
Finger Lakes Enthusiast, he's back.
how does the grind size adjustment actually work?
It works as you might expect, actually. So the design on the grinder is constantly being improved upon by Jura. And sometimes we have to kind of read between the lines in terms of what that actually means. So I think the last time they were saying the new grinder has an 11% increase in aroma. And we're like, well, what does that really mean? And so aroma, that refers to the amount of ground coffee that's actually making it into your puck. So just like on a regular espresso grinder, there's going to be retention. And so it's the same thing on super auto grinders. And more or less Jura made some updates so that even more of that coffee made its way into the puck, right? And so that means, though, too, that the grinding chamber tends to be completely clear, more or less, between grind cycles, so that the burrs can adjust before you make your next drink. And so the idea is the burrs reposition right as they're grinding to change the actual grind so that it's more coarse or more fine based on your setting. All right, I think I have time for maybe one more. We're going a little bit over, but I'm loving this. So, yeah, if we got one more, I'll take one more.
Obviously, Subdude is familiar with Jura's line of machines because he already asked about the J8, but now he's he's asking, beyond the second grinder, what does the Giga 10 buy you over the Z10?
You know, that's a really good question, and I would say the Giga 10 really, the second grinder is what you're getting. So to be real, as far as that's concerned, on the Z10 you have a few more functions that you don't have on the Giga 10. So there is more customization in terms of things like the milk temperatures, for example, and you do have the ability to have your grinder self-adjust on a per drink basis. The Giga 10 is going to have you set a grind setting on a per grinder basis. Now, what that means, though, is with two grinders, you can do true half calves, for example. You can have a dedicated decaf grinder. If you're a little more specialty oriented, you could take two single origin coffees and blend them. But you do have a lot more capacity as well. So if you're somebody who makes lots of coffee all the time and you have lots of guests generally that you're entertaining, or if you're buying it for, like, say, a luxury apartment complex or something like that, that's where something like the Giga 10 would really, I think, benefit you. Because the Z10 at the end of the day does not have quite the same capacity as the Giga 10, but in terms of the kinds of drinks that they can both make, the menus are going to be very similar. It's just going to be a little different in terms of how the Z10 would make a drink, for example, versus the Giga 10. But really, the money that you're spending is getting you a whole second grinder, which is, to some people, I think, a real, like, a deal maker when it comes to getting a super auto, because that's really, it's not a very common feature. All right, well, perfect. So, you know, didn't get to cover as much as I'd like, but I think that's a great opportunity for one of you, if you're out there, to book what we have. It's called CoffeeCast. So if you want to join me or another member of our sales team, we can set up a Z10 or any of the other Juras, or pretty much any other product for that matter, and do a live one-on-one demo with you so we can cover your specific questions and go into more detail. But the Jura Z10, I think, an incredible super auto, great value, and really one of the best options out there if you want a wide variety of drinks at home. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm Nick. This was our last live stream for the day, but make sure you check out our streams that we have planned for tomorrow, because we've got a lot of cool stuff going for the rest of the week. Thank you so much.